Yes, I think it's now a good moment for you, Mr. Dr. to present your delegation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Philip Divito, the first President of Flemish Parliament, for providing us this opportunity to call our friends across Europe, especially those who are living in exile due to political repression of Pakistan since many years. First of all, I would like to introduce Sardar Shaukat Ali Kashmiri, who is the chairman of the United Kashmir People's National Party. He established this party in 1985 with a few of the colleagues, progressive colleagues, and eventually he had to leave his native state in 1999 after facing 2 illegal abductions and confinement at the hands of inter-services intelligence of Pakistani military. So he is living in exile in Switzerland since then, and he has traveled across Europe, from Canada to Britain and in Europe. And in the past we have been lobbying in the EU institutions and with the Belgian policymakers too, to highlight the painful situation in our region, especially when Pakistan has designed to use religion as a weapon and terrorism as a policy tool to suppress our people's demands and their wishes and their rights. So Mr. Sardar Shaukat Ali Kashmiri was the first person who challenged Pakistani narrative on using religion and terrorism as a foreign policy tool in Indian administrative part of demarcation. So I would like to request Sardar Shaukat Ali Kashmiri sir to come at the seat. And then we have Mr. Jamil Qureshi. He is a young professional who established European Foundation for South Asian Studies as a think tank based in Netherlands, and he is effectively working on terrorism, counter-terrorism, human rights, and he has a range of areas working from United Nations Human Rights Council, and of course in the EU institutions as well. And then please, you also come here on the stage, and then we have Mr. Fadl Rahman Afridi Sahab. He is from Pakhtunkhwa movement. He represents the Pashtun Tahfuz movement, or Pashtun Protection movement, a region that is adjacent to Afghanistan and it was segregated from Afghanistan in 1905 or around that, when Development Line was established to divide Pashtun and to weaken their power. So after suffering so many years of political repression inflicted by the Pakistani state, now they realize that the Pashtun should be one, and since their lives are at stake because of the proxy war that designed by Pakistan to manipulate democracy and human rights and inclusiveness in Afghanistan. So the Pashtun Tahfuz movement is aimed to ask the government of Pakistan to stop using their land as a proxy and stop using their people as a proxy against their own people, because they think that the Afghan and Pakhtunkhwa people, they are one people, ethnically, linguistically, racially, and even religiously. They are one people, the majority of them. And nevertheless, there is one section in the north, they are Shiites, and other ethnic minorities are also there in Afghanistan. So we are having Mr. Afridi here. I will invite you, just 1 second. And then we have our other friends. Is represented Pashtun Tahfuz movement, Mr. Malik Qazi, Mr. Rahmanullah Khan, our friend and colleague, press secretary for European organization, Mr. Sajid Hussain, Mrs. Nargis, you are also welcome in this gathering. Our central spokesperson for United Kashmir People's National Party, Mr. Nasir Aziz Khan, who is there. He is living in exile in Switzerland since long, and he has a credential to speak and to represent our aspirations at United Nations Human Rights Council for a long time. Then we have journalist Mr. Abduladim Shafiq from Switzerland, and I also welcome Mr. Dr. Wolfgang Pitt. He is a researcher and a wonderful human being. I met him in a conference in Brussels, and he's a writer, he's an author, and we will also like to interact with him afterwards. And of course, our common friend, Mr. Derek Cartwright, you are also welcome in this hall. So this is our, and of course, two of our colleagues, I forgot, the President of United Kashmir People's National Party Europe Zone, Mr. Hamid Yusuf, he is living in London, and Mr. Sundar Abbas, he is living in Belgium for a long time. He is the Senior Vice President of our party in Belgium.
So he speaks Dutch.
Yes, he speaks Dutch. He has a long interaction with the Dutch-speaking community because he's a businessman, he's an entrepreneur. So this kind of things are, we have this delegation that we hope. Now please start proceeding.
First of all, I would also like to thank Mr. Cartwright, who I know for a long time already. He's the chief editor of Europe Today, to join us today. Thank you very much for being here. We'll speak English today. It's obvious, otherwise it will be quite complicated to translate all those languages, but nevertheless. So I think the first speaker can proceed. Who will be the, Mr. Maqsood, who is your first speaker?
Just a second, just a second. I have to.
Because we also have two speakers who will join us with the video conference. So
Yes. Yes, thank you. And sorry for the delay. The topic of today is Islamism and versus human rights. And the way the government of Pakistan execute its authority seems that they are using religion to press human rights. And human rights are very well documented in the United Nations International Declaration for Human Rights, passed on 10th of December 1948. So every year, international community and civil society rights groups commemorates its anniversary as an international convention on human rights. But unfortunately, since Pakistan is signatory to that convention as well, and many others, like International Conventions on Civil and Political Rights, Geneva Convention, etc., etc., but they execute and practice as per their wish and their will, not as per international norms and values. So this is the problem with the government of Pakistan since its inception on 14th of August 1947. Just after a couple of months, the legislature of Pakistan introduced resolution of objectives that declare Pakistan as Islamic Republic rather than Republic of Pakistan. And despite creating or giving people a constitution, they start adopting resolutions. Resolutions of resolutions until 1956. They made a constitution that was abrogated in 1962, and then that constitution was once again abrogated, and another constitution was made and implemented in 1973 that is still enforced. And during all these years, when we explore what Pakistan did with its own people, for instance, the most affected people were the country's minorities, who were 17% at that time, that gradually shrink to 2% today in 75 years. It means Pakistan used religion against its own people. Whereas most of the progressive democratic voices in Pakistan claim that the founder of Pakistan, Mr. Jinnah, on his 11th August, he assured all the people of a newly created country, Pakistan, namely Pakistan, that from today you are all equal. You are not Muslims, you are not Christians, you are not Hindus, you are all Pakistanis with equal rights. But that was only a dream. Not only for the minorities, but for everyone. The people who were supported by the British after 1857 Freedom War were given the charge to run the country. So there were feudal lords, there were military generals, and there were mullah, the clergy. They created an unholy alliance against their own people, just after the creation of that country. So this was a somehow small introduction, and now I would like to invite our first speaker, the man speaker from our side,